everything fell apart. If you have ever sat in front of a YouTube video to learn English, then paused it, sighed, and thought, "What's the point anymore?" This video is for you. Imagine losing your money, your plan, your confidence, and almost your marriage, inside a country where you don't fully speak the language. Imagine having children who look at you for answers while your English disappears exactly when you need it most. This is not a success story yet. This is the moment right before giving up, when one question keeps echoing in your head. He lost everything. Would you still stay? I didn't plan to tell this story. Honestly, I wanted to forget it. 3 weeks ago in the United States, my life collapsed quietly, without drama, without a loud explosion. Just a series of small failures stacking on top of each other like unpaid bills. One job opportunity disappeared. A place we thought was stable suddenly wasn't. My English, which I believed was good enough, turned into something fragile and shaky the moment real pressure arrived. There's a strange thing stress does to your brain. Neuroscience calls it cognitive load. When survival anxiety rises, the brain shuts down anything it considers non-essential. Guess what language learning becomes in that moment? Non-essential. That's why your English feels like it vanishes when you're nervous. It's not because you're bad. It's because your brain is protecting you, badly. I remember standing in a grocery store in California, holding a simple product in my hand, unable to ask a basic question. Not because I didn't know the words, but because my chest was tight, my thoughts were racing, and my mind was screaming, "Don't mess this up." That's when I realized something painful. Losing English confidence feels a lot like losing your identity. At home, the silence was heavier. My wife didn't yell. That was worse. Silence in marriage is not empty. It's full of unsaid fears. Our children sensed it immediately. Kids don't need explanations. They read energy. They watched how slowly I spoke, how often I paused, how I avoided phone calls. To them, English wasn't a language problem. It was a signal that something was wrong with Dad. Here's a psychological truth most people don't tell you. When men feel they can't provide, they emotionally withdraw. It's not weakness, it's conditioning. And language barriers amplify that withdrawal. Every conversation becomes a reminder of limitation. Every mistake feels public. You start measuring your worth in vocabulary size. That's dangerous. So I stopped trying to sound smart. I started trying to sound clear. Instead of complex sentences, I used short ones. I need help. I don't understand. Can you speak slowly? Simple English. Survival English. And something unexpected happened. People responded with kindness, not judgment. My brain began to relax. This is supported by science too. When you slow down your speech, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Your body exits fight or flight mode. Learning becomes possible again. That's why slow English is not for beginners. It's for humans under pressure. At night, when the kids were asleep, my wife finally asked the question I feared most. Not out loud but with her eyes. Are we okay? I didn't answer with promises. I answered with honesty. Short sentences. Clear words. Real emotions. That night, English wasn't a tool for success. It was a bridge to stay connected. If you're watching this while feeling behind, embarrassed, or exhausted from trying to improve your English, hear this carefully. You are not lazy. You are overloaded. And overload kills motivation faster than failure ever could. This story doesn't start with confidence. It starts with collapse. And sometimes, collapse is the only honest place to rebuild from. Because when everything falls apart, the real question isn't how fluent you are. It's whether you're still willing to speak. Slowly, imperfectly, and honestly. 3 weeks in America. 3 weeks is not a long time on paper. But inside your body, 3 weeks under pressure can feel like 3 years. Especially when you're in a country where every street sign, every voicemail, every casual conversation reminds you that you are not fully fluent, not fully in control. The United States doesn't feel aggressive about this. It's worse. It feels normal. And normal is terrifying when you're struggling, because no one slows down unless you ask. When we first arrived, I told myself a comforting lie. My English is enough. That sentence alone carried my ego, my plans, and my role as a husband and father. Psychologists call this optimism bias, the belief that things will work out because we want them to. The problem is, reality doesn't negotiate with optimism. By day 4, small cracks appeared. A phone call I avoided because I didn't want to misunderstand numbers. An email I reread 10 times because one word felt dangerous. I noticed my speaking speed increase, not decrease. That's stress. Under pressure, people speak faster, hoping to escape the moment. Ironically, faster speech creates more mistakes, which creates more shame. A perfect loop of self-sabotage. My wife noticed before I did. She asked gently, "Why are you so tired after talking to people?" That question hit hard. Language fatigue is real. Your brain burns more glucose when operating in a second language. Studies show that speaking a non-native language under stress can increase mental exhaustion by up to 40%. No wonder I felt drained after simple interactions. Our children adapted faster. That's what kids do. Their brains are wired for play, not perfection. They repeated words without fear. They laughed at mistakes. Watching them made me uncomfortable, because it exposed my own rigidity. Adults don't fail louder, they fail quieter. We retreat. By the end of week 1, the financial pressure arrived. Not a disaster. Just uncertainty. And uncertainty is more corrosive than bad news. It triggers the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. When that activates, language processing in the prefrontal cortex weakens. In simple terms, fear steals your words. One evening, my wife and I sat in the car after a long day. No music. No phones. Just the sound of traffic outside. She said, "If this doesn't work, what's our plan?" I realized I had been focusing so hard on surviving in English that I forgot to lead emotionally. Language is not just words, it's responsibility. So I changed one thing. Just one. I stopped rehearsing perfect sentences in my head. Instead, I allowed pauses. Silence. Slowness. When I spoke, I let my accent exist. That decision reduced my anxiety instantly. Research backs this up. Self-acceptance lowers cortisol, improving cognitive clarity. When you stop fighting yourself, your brain cooperates. Week 2 was still heavy, but different. I started using English like a flashlight instead of a spotlight. Not to impress, just to see the next step. What do we do today? How much is this? Can you explain again? Simple structures. Repetition. Real-life English. My marriage shifted subtly. We communicated more clearly, not more beautifully. And clarity builds trust faster than eloquence ever will. I told her my fears without decoration. She responded with presence, not solutions. That mattered more than advice. By week 3, I noticed something strange. I wasn't fluent. I wasn't confident. But I was present. That presence softened my children. It steadied my wife. It steadied me. The brain loves predictability. Slow, consistent communication creates safety. Safety restores learning. If you're trying to improve your English while juggling immigration stress, financial pressure, or family responsibility, here's a truth that might save you months of frustration. Motivation doesn't come before stability. It comes after. First, you calm the system. Then, the language returns. 3 weeks in America taught me this. You don't lose your English because you're weak. You lose it because you care. And caring, when unmanaged, overwhelms the brain. But when you slow down, really slow down, you don't just learn English again. You learn how to stay. Love under pressure. Pressure doesn't break love immediately. It squeezes it first. Slowly. Quietly. like a hand testing how much air is left in your lungs. You don't notice it at the beginning, because you're busy surviving. Bills, schedules, school, language, food. Your brain ranks love as something to deal with later. That's the trap. In the United States, love is not tested by romance. It's tested by logistics. Forms. Phone calls. Appointments. All in English. When every shared responsibility requires translation, patience becomes a limited resource. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more decisions you make in a second language, the faster your emotional reserves drain. I noticed it in small moments. We argued about things that weren't real problems. Who forgot to buy milk? Who misunderstood a message? But those weren't the fights. Those were symptoms. The real conflict was unspoken fear. What if we fail here? Under pressure, people default to their emotional survival styles. Some attack. Some withdraw. I withdrew. Silence felt safer than saying the wrong thing in the wrong language. But silence in a relationship is not neutral. It creates distance. Neuroscience shows that emotional disconnection activates the same pain centers as physical injury. Love literally hurts when it feels unsafe. My wife tried to reach me. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if my confidence were something fragile that might crack. That kindness, ironically, made me feel smaller. Pride doesn't disappear under love, it hides. And when pride hides, it resists help. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Language barriers magnify power imbalances. When one partner feels less capable of navigating the world, they may feel less equal. Equality in marriage is not about money or roles. It's about agency. And agency requires communication. One night, after the kids fell asleep, we sat at the kitchen table. No phones. Just tired eyes and unfinished sentences. She asked, "Do you still trust me?" Not, "Do you love me?" Trust comes before love in crisis. I answered in simple English, not because she needed it, but because I did. I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm here. That moment changed something. Science explains why. Vulnerability reduces interpersonal threat. When the brain perceives honesty, oxytocin increases. Connection strengthens. Love under pressure doesn't need poetry. It needs truth. I stopped trying to protect her from my fear. Protection without transparency is isolation. I began narrating my inner state, slowly. Today was hard. I felt stupid speaking. I need help. These sentences are boring. They are also powerful. They create emotional alignment. Our children noticed the shift before we did. Kids are emotional barometers. They felt the tension decrease. Laughter returned in small doses. Not joy, relief. Relief is the first step back to intimacy. Here's something rarely discussed. Learning a language together can rebond a couple. When both partners are imperfect, competition disappears. Collaboration begins. We practiced English in the car, mispronouncing words, correcting gently. Shared struggle builds trust faster than shared success. Psychologically, couples who face external stress together and communicate openly develop secure resilience. It's not happiness. It's stability under strain. And stability keeps love alive when romance has no oxygen. If you're trying to learn English while maintaining a relationship, understand this: your partner is not judging your grammar. They are reading your emotional availability. Speak slower. Pause. Let silence be shared, not avoided. Pressure doesn't ask if love is real. It asks if love can adapt. And adaptation starts with communication that is human, not impressive. Because when love is under pressure, the strongest sentence is not "I will succeed." It's "I'm still here with you." Marriage without safety net. A marriage feels very different when there is no backup plan. No savings cushion. No familiar language. No country to retreat to emotionally. A safety net is not just money. It's the belief that if things go wrong, something will catch you. In those weeks in the United States, our safety net disappeared quietly. And what remained was the raw structure of our marriage. Without a net, every word matters more. Not because it's dramatic, but because mistakes feel expensive. One misunderstanding can turn into an argument. One bad day can feel like a threat to the entire relationship. Psychologists describe this as threat amplification. When resources are limited, the brain exaggerates risk. You're not more negative, you're more alert. I felt it every time my wife asked a simple question. "Did you call them?" My chest tightened. Not because of the question, but because it reminded me that leadership requires clarity. And clarity requires language. When language feels unstable, identity follows. Here's the part most people don't admit. Marriage under pressure exposes hidden contracts. Unspoken agreements like "I'll be strong" or "you'll handle things." When reality breaks those contracts, resentment tries to fill the gap. Not loudly. Quietly. Through tone. Through distance. One afternoon, we argued in the car. Not shouting. Worse, short sentences, sharp pauses. Each pause felt like a cliff. I realized I was speaking faster again. My brain was trying to regain control. Faster speech equals urgency.
Urgency signale danger.
Danger shuts down listening. It's a neurological loop. So I stopped mid-sentence. Literally stopped. Took a breath. Slowed my words. I feel lost, I said. Simple. Clear. The tension dropped immediately. Slowness changed the nervous system of the conversation. Studies show that slower speech increases perceived sincerity and reduces conflict escalation. Your body listens before your partner does. Without a safety net, honesty becomes the net. We began naming things instead of fixing them. This scares me. I don't know the answer. I need time. These sentences don't solve problems, but they stabilize the ground you stand on. Marriage is not tested by success. It's tested by uncertainty. And uncertainty reveals whether communication is performative or real. When there's no audience, no future guarantee, do you still speak with respect? Our children again played a silent role. They watched how we handled fear. Kids learn conflict patterns before vocabulary. They don't need English to understand tone. That responsibility changed how I spoke, not just what I said. From a psychological perspective, couples who survive high-stress periods rely on emotional regulation, not problem-solving. You can't solve everything at once. But you can regulate how you talk while things are unsolved. That's marriage without a net. I also learned something uncomfortable about myself. I equated worth with usefulness. When I couldn't navigate systems easily in English, I felt less valuable. That belief poisoned my presence. Once I separated worth from performance, my voice steadied. We made a rule. No important conversations when tired or hungry. It sounds simple. It's science. Low glucose levels reduce impulse control. Bad timing creates fake problems. Respecting biology saved our marriage more than motivation ever could. If you're watching this and you're in a relationship strained by language barriers, financial stress, or immigration pressure, hear this. Your marriage doesn't need answers yet. It needs safety. And safety begins with slow, honest communication. Because when there is no safety net below you, the way you speak to each other becomes the ground. And sometimes, that ground is enough to stand on. Children see everything. Children don't need long explanations. They don't need motivational speeches. They don't even need the right words. What they need is consistency. And when adults are under pressure, financial, emotional, linguistic, consistency is the first thing to break. That's how children know something is wrong long before anyone explains it. During those weeks in the United States, my kids watched me more than they listened to me. That's a scientific fact. not a parenting opinion. Developmental psychology shows that children mirror emotional regulation, not verbal instruction. So when my English faltered, when my posture collapsed after phone calls, when I went quiet at dinner, they absorbed it. One night, my child asked a question that felt too big for their age. Are we staying here forever? It wasn't curiosity. It was anxiety wrapped in a sentence. Kids ask about the future when the present feels unstable. I answered slowly. Not with promises. With presence. I don't know yet. But we are together. Simple English. Clear truth. Here's the part that surprised me. My children weren't afraid of our situation. They were afraid of my silence. Silence forces kids to imagine. And their imagination is more terrifying than reality. Neuroscience explains this through predictive processing. The brain fills gaps with worst-case scenarios when information is missing. I realized then that speaking imperfect English was better than saying nothing at all. So I narrated life. Dad is tired. Dad is learning. Dad made a mistake. These sentences humanized me. And when adults allow themselves to be human, children feel safer. Something else happened. My kids began helping me with English. Correcting pronunciation. Would you still stay? There is a question that sounds simple but carries the weight of an entire life. If I lost everything, would you still stay? It's not a question you ask out loud. It lives behind your eyes. It shows up when money disappears, when confidence collapses, when language fails you at the worst possible time. That question followed me everywhere during those weeks in America. Losing everything doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in layers. First, you lose certainty. Then control. Then the version of yourself you were proud of. Psychologically, this is called identity threat. When your role, provider, leader, problem solver, becomes unstable, your brain reacts as if you're under attack. I felt it every time my wife took over a conversation I normally handled. Rationally, I knew she was helping. Emotionally, it felt like evidence. Evidence that I was becoming optional. That's not jealousy. That's fear wearing logic's clothes. Men rarely talk about this because we're taught to confuse worth with usefulness. When usefulness drops, self-respect follows. And when self-respect drops, you start pulling away, not because you don't care, but because you're ashamed. One night, lying in the dark, I imagined her future without me. A version where life is easier. Where language flows. Where decisions don't stall. That imagination hurt more than reality. The brain is excellent at punishing you with hypothetical loss. The next day, something small happened. She asked, "Are you okay?" Not what's the plan. Not did you fix it. Just that. I answered honestly, slowly. I feel like I'm failing. Saying it out loud reduced its power. Neuroscience confirms this. Labeling emotions decreases amygdala activation. Fear loses strength when named. She didn't correct me. She didn't reassure me with clichés. She stayed. Physically. Emotionally. That presence answered the question without words. Here's a truth people avoid. Staying doesn't mean things are fine. It means the relationship is bigger than the moment. Love under real threat becomes quiet, practical, patient. Not dramatic. Not loud. From a psychological standpoint, secure attachment isn't about never doubting. It's about returning after doubt. And return requires communication, even broken communication. I stopped pretending I was okay. I stopped pretending my English confidence defined my value. I allowed myself to be seen as incomplete. That visibility felt dangerous. It was also freeing. Something shifted after that. I didn't rush to prove myself anymore. I focused on being present, listening, responding slowly. Presence builds trust faster than performance ever could. If you're learning English while carrying fear of loss of relationship, respect, or self, remember this: people don't stay for perfection. They stay for honesty. They stay for effort. They stay for emotional availability. The question, would you still stay, isn't really about your partner. It's about whether you allow yourself to stay emotionally, even when you feel diminished. Because when everything feels lost, staying, speaking slowly, showing up imperfectly, is the bravest answer you can give. English became survival. At some point, English stopped being a subject and started being oxygen. Not metaphorically. Literally. When your ability to explain, ask, or understand determines whether your day moves forward or collapses, language becomes survival. That shift changes everything about how your brain treats learning. Before, English was optional. A goal. A future benefit. But in those weeks in the United States, English became immediate. Urgent. And urgency is dangerous for learning. The brain doesn't absorb well when it's panicking. It narrows focus. It chooses speed over accuracy. That's why you suddenly forget words you've known for years. I noticed this pattern clearly. In calm moments, my English was fine. Under pressure, phone calls, appointments, unexpected questions, it vanished. This isn't personal failure. It's neuroscience. Stress releases cortisol. Cortisol disrupts working memory. Vocabulary retrieval slows. Sentences fragment. Once I understood that, I stopped blaming myself. Blame increases stress. Stress kills language. Another loop. So I changed strategy. I reduced English to what mattered. Needs. Clarification. Time. I need help. Please wait. Can you repeat slowly? These phrases became anchors. Anchors stabilize you in rough water. Research in second language acquisition supports this. High-frequency functional phrases activate automatic processing pathways. They require less cognitive effort. That frees mental space for listening. Survival English is not basic, it's efficient. I also slowed my listening. Instead of trying to understand everything, I listened for meaning, not words. Tone. Intent. Key nouns. The brain naturally fills gaps when pressure drops. You don't need full comprehension to respond effectively. At home, we practiced English differently. No textbooks. No drills. Just life. I described what I was doing. I am cooking. I am tired. Simple present tense. Repetition. This may sound childish. It works because repetition under low stress builds neural strength. My children joined in. My wife corrected gently. No embarrassment. Laughter replaced tension. Laughter releases dopamine, which enhances memory formation. Learning stuck better in those moments than in any formal study session. Here's the shift most learners miss. Survival English grows confidence faster than advanced vocabulary. Confidence restores curiosity. Curiosity restarts learning. That's the real order. I stopped asking, "How do I sound?" and started asking, "Did they understand?" Communication succeeded even when grammar failed. That success calmed my nervous system. Calm reopened access to language. If you feel stuck in your English journey, ask yourself this: are you learning for performance or for life? Performance creates pressure. Life creates context. Survival doesn't mean panic. It means prioritizing clarity over beauty, slowness over fluency, connection over correctness. When English became survival, it also became honest. And honesty made it learnable again. Because you don't need perfect English to survive. You need usable English, and the courage to use it. Slow English moments. There is a quiet kind of learning that never appears in textbooks. It doesn't announce itself with progress charts or vocabulary lists. It happens in pauses. In half-finished sentences. In moments when you choose clarity over speed. That kind of learning saved me in those weeks in the United States. I call them slow English moments. A slow English moment is not about speaking less. It's about giving your brain time to arrive. Most people rush their words because silence feels like failure. In reality, silence is processing. Neuroscience shows that a 2-second pause allows the prefrontal cortex to organize language more effectively. That pause is not empty, it's productive. I remember standing at a pharmacy, needing something simple. Instead of forcing a full sentence, I said slowly, "I need help." Then I waited. My body wanted to fill the gap. I didn't. The person responded kindly, slowly. That exchange lasted maybe 30 seconds. It reset my entire day. Slow English moments work because they change the power dynamic. When you slow down, you invite the other person to adjust. Most people will. Not because they pity you, but because humans naturally synchronize speech rhythms. It's called entrainment. Your pace influences theirs. At home, we created space for these moments. No interrupting. No finishing each other's sentences. Just listening. That rule did more for my confidence than any pronunciation exercise. Feeling heard reduces performance anxiety. Reduced anxiety improves speech flow. Again, loop broken. I also noticed something important. Slow English made my emotions clearer. When you speak fast, emotions leak unpredictably. When you speak slow, you choose them. I could say, "I am frustrated," instead of sounding frustrated without explanation. That distinction matters in relationships. From a learning perspective, slow speech increases comprehensible input. You hear yourself. You notice patterns. You self-correct naturally. Children learn this way. Adults forget. We practiced with tiny routines. Morning phrases. Bedtime phrases. Always the same. Always slow. Predictability reduces cognitive load. Cognitive load reduction accelerates acquisition. Simple science. Outside in the world, I allowed myself to ask for repetition. That felt humiliating at first. Then it felt liberating. "Can you say that again slowly?" Became my favorite sentence. It turned confusion into collaboration. Here's a truth no one tells you. Native speakers forget they are fluent. When you slow them down, they remember. They simplify. They help. Language becomes shared again. Slow English moments are not setbacks. They are investments. Each one builds trust, inside your brain and between people. If you want to improve listening, reading, and speaking at the same time, slow down all three. Read aloud slowly. Listen without translating. Speak without rushing. Integration beats intensity. By the end of week 3, my English wasn't impressive. But it was stable. And stability is the foundation of growth. Because when you allow yourself to go slow, you don't fall behind. You finally move forward. The brain under stress. Your brain is not broken. It is overwhelmed. That distinction matters more than any grammar rule you've ever learned. Most people think they fail at English because they lack discipline or talent. In reality, they're trying to learn while their nervous system is in survival mode. And the brain in survival mode does not care about verb tenses. Stress changes how your brain works. When pressure rises, financial fear, family responsibility, immigration uncertainty, the amygdala activates. That's the alarm system. Once it's on, blood flow shifts away from the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for language, planning, and self-control. In simple words, fear steals your English. I lived inside that biology. I could read English fine in the morning, then freeze during a phone call in the afternoon. Same brain. Different state. That's why forcing yourself to try harder often backfires. Effort without regulation increases stress, which further shuts down language access. There's a concept in neuroscience called state-dependent learning. You recall information best in the same emotional state in which you learned it. If you study English calmly but try to speak it while anxious, your brain struggles to retrieve it. That's not weakness. That's wiring. Once I understood this, I stopped blaming motivation and started managing state. Before conversations, I slowed my breathing. 4 seconds in. 6 seconds out. This activates the vagus nerve, calming the nervous system. Calm restores language access. Simple physiology. I also lowered my expectations in stressful moments. Not fewer goals, simpler ones. Instead of speak clearly, my goal became be understood. That reframing reduced internal pressure. Reduced pressure improved performance. Another loop broken. At home, we adjusted communication during high-stress days. Short sentences. No big discussions late at night. The brain under fatigue has less impulse control. Arguments escalate not because of content, but because of biology. Children, again, reflected this. On calm days, they spoke more. On tense days, they withdrew. Their nervous systems synced with ours. Regulation spreads. Here's the mistake many English learners make. They treat language as an isolated skill. It's not. It's a cognitive function dependent on emotional safety. That's why traditional push-yourself advice fails under real-life stress. Instead, create safety first. Predictable routines. Gentle repetition. Self-compassion. These aren't soft ideas. They are neurological necessities. When I stopped forcing fluency and started supporting my nervous system, English returned gradually. Not dramatically. Quietly. Word by word. If you're stuck, don't ask, "What am I missing?" Ask, "What am I carrying?" Reduce the load, and your brain will cooperate. Because the brain under stress isn't lazy. It's just trying to keep you alive. Small actions saved us. Big changes didn't save our family. Small actions did. Tiny, almost embarrassing actions. The kind you don't post online because they don't look impressive. But they work because the brain doesn't rebuild trust or motivation through grand gestures. It rebuilds them through consistency. When everything felt fragile, we stopped chasing breakthroughs and started protecting basics. Sleep. Meals. Short walks. 10-minute conversations. This wasn't self-care culture. It was nervous system repair. Science calls it behavioral stabilization. When life feels chaotic, predictable microactions restore a sense of control. I applied this to English first. Instead of learning English, I chose one action per day. 1. Read a short message out loud. Repeat a phrase while making coffee. Ask one question slowly. That was it. No apps. No pressure. Just continuity. The brain loves streaks, not intensity. Dopamine responds to completion, not difficulty. Each small action created a quiet reward loop. Motivation followed behavior, not the other way around. My marriage shifted the same way. We stopped trying to fix everything. We focused on showing up in small, visible ways. Sitting together without phones. Saying thank you out loud. Naming effort. These actions signaled safety. Safety allowed affection to return naturally. Children responded immediately. Kids are sensitive to rhythm. When routines stabilize, anxiety drops. When anxiety drops, play returns. Play is a sign of psychological health. Our home sounded lighter, not because problems disappeared, but because regulation returned. There's a psychological principle called minimum viable progress. It means doing the smallest action that still moves you forward. Most people fail because they aim for transformation while their system can only handle maintenance. In English learning, minimum viable progress looks like this: one clear sentence spoken slowly and understood. That's success. Not fluency. Not confidence. Understanding. I also stopped multitasking. Multitasking increases cognitive load and reduces language accuracy. Single tasking, just listening, just speaking, improved my comprehension immediately. Quality over quantity. We made one more rule: no self-criticism after mistakes. Correction, yes.
Judgment, no.
Self-judgment triggers threat response. Threat response shuts down learning. Again, biology. Over time, these small actions stacked. Confidence returned quietly. Not as excitement. As steadiness. Steadiness is underrated. It's the foundation of resilience. If you're overwhelmed, here's your permission slip. Stop trying to change your life. Start protecting it. Small actions don't feel heroic, but they are reliable. Because when everything feels broken, small actions are not small. They are survival, and survival is progress. Hope sounds like English. Hope does not arrive when your life suddenly improves. It arrives when your body stops preparing for disaster. That difference matters. For me, hope didn't feel like confidence, excitement, or certainty. It sounded like English, quiet, unfinished, sometimes awkward English, coming back into my life without asking permission. It started with a moment so small I almost ignored it. I was washing dishes and noticed my inner voice had switched languages. Not fully. Not beautifully. Just enough. This plate is dirty. That sentence didn't mean anything special. But the fact that it appeared without effort meant everything. Neurologically, this is a sign that your brain no longer sees the language as a threat. The guard lowers. Access returns. When you are under prolonged stress, your brain conserves energy. It cuts optional functions. Foreign language is one of the first to go. When English comes back naturally, it means your nervous system is slowly exiting survival mode. That is hope. Hope also sounded like fewer apologies. I stopped saying sorry, my English is bad. Not because it suddenly improved, but because I no longer felt ashamed of it. Shame blocks learning. Acceptance unlocks it. Research shows that self-compassion increases persistence far more than self-criticism ever could. In my marriage, hope sounded like pauses that didn't feel dangerous anymore. Silence stopped being a warning sign. It became space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to choose words instead of rushing them. That changed the emotional tone of everything. My wife didn't need me to sound fluent. She needed me to sound present. Presence is detectable. It's in eye contact, in timing, in emotional clarity. Language carries emotion better when it's slow. Children felt it too. They began asking questions again. Not anxious ones. Curious ones. Why do people say that? What does this word mean? Curiosity is a psychological signal of safety. When curiosity returns, fear has loosened its grip. Hope also changed how I listened. I stopped translating everything in my head. I listened for meaning, not perfection.
Tone. Intention.
Context. The brain is designed for this. Babies don't understand every word. They understand relationships first. I began choosing English content that felt human. Stories. Real conversations. Gentle voices. Not aggressive motivation. Not 10x your English. Just people talking about life. Storytelling activates mirror neurons. You feel understood before you understand everything. One day, I handled a conversation alone that I would have avoided 2 weeks earlier. It wasn't smooth. But it worked. That success didn't make me proud. It made me calm. Calm is a deeper victory. Psychologically, hope is not the absence of fear. It's the belief that fear is manageable. English gave me proof that I could function even when imperfect. That proof extended beyond language. It touched identity. If you are learning English and feel stuck, here is something important. Motivation doesn't return because life improves. Life improves because motivation returns in small ways. And motivation returns when your nervous system feels safe enough to try again. Hope sounds like this. I can try. I don't know yet. Can you say that again? These sentences are not weak. They are alive. Because hope doesn't sound like fluent English. It sounds like English you are no longer afraid to speak. If you are still here. If you are still here, still listening, still reading, then something inside you hasn't given up yet. Even if you feel tired. Even if you feel behind. Even if a part of you is whispering that it might be easier to stop trying. The fact that you stayed until this moment matters more than you think. People who quit don't usually quit loudly. They fade. They stop opening videos. They stop practicing just for today, which quietly becomes forever. So if you are still here, it means you are not done. You may be discouraged, but you are not disconnected from hope. 3 weeks ago, I thought I had lost everything. Not just money or stability, but the version of myself I trusted. The man who could speak clearly, decide quickly, protect his family confidently. Losing English under pressure felt like losing my voice in my own life. But here's what I learned, and this is important. Losing your voice is not the same as losing your value. Your value doesn't shrink when your language does. It waits. Psychology tells us that humans rebuild identity through narrative. The stories we tell ourselves determine whether pain becomes damage or data. I stopped telling myself I failed, and started telling myself, I'm in transition. That shift alone changed how my brain responded to difficulty. If you are watching this because you want to improve your English, but life feels heavy, relationships, family, money, immigration, self-doubt, understand this clearly. Your English problem is not really an English problem. It is a nervous system problem. Fix the pressure, and the language follows. You don't need more motivation. Motivation is unreliable under stress. You need gentleness, predictability, small wins. Those rebuild trust inside your brain. I am still not fluent. I still pause. I still search for words. But I no longer disappear when things get hard. I stay. I speak slowly. I ask for time. That alone changed my marriage, my connection with my children, and my relationship with English. If you are learning English for your family, for love, for survival, or for a future you're not sure you deserve yet, let me tell you something honestly. The future doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs a present one. Stay with the language. Stay with the process. Stay with yourself. Because one day, without noticing exactly when, you will realize something quiet and powerful. English no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a door. And you didn't break it down. You opened it, slowly. Sometimes the most important question is not "Can I speak English well?" It's "Can I stay when everything feels like it's falling apart?" I lost money. I lost certainty. I almost lost my voice. But I didn't lose the people who stayed when I spoke slowly, imperfectly, and honestly. If you are still watching this video, maybe you're not really here for English. Maybe you're here because you're tired. Because life feels heavy. Because you're learning English while carrying a family, a relationship, a future you're afraid to fail. And maybe you're quietly asking yourself the same question I did. If I lost everything, would I still be worth staying for? This channel is not about perfect grammar. It's about real English, used in real life, when your heart is tired but you keep going anyway. Slow English. Clear English. Human English. In the next videos, I'll continue sharing real stories, real struggles, and real conversations, so you can practice listening, reading, and speaking English naturally without pressure, without shame. If this story touched you even a little, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel so you don't have to learn English alone. Like this video to tell YouTube this kind of real English matters. Leave a comment and tell me, would you stay? Because sometimes, learning English isn't about moving forward fast. It's about staying long enough for your voice to come back. And if you're still here, this channel was made for you.